Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Tonight, my guest is Sergio Halabi, host of The Paradigm Shift. Before I bring him on, I want to remind you to subscribe to Forbidden Knowledge News on LBRY TV, which is actually now Odyssey. We're always available on all popular podcast platforms. And definitely check us out on Rokfin. That is where you get all of our premium content. You get Forbidden Knowledge News Con last year, this year. You get all of our regular shows and all of the premium content from every content creator on Rokfin. Just click the link in the description or visit rokfin.com/FKN+ and check out what they have to offer. Also, check out the great products at Ascent Nutrition. They are from the same fine folks at EMF Harmonized. I've been using their Peak Liver Support. It supports liver detoxification, and it's full of free radical scavengers and supports healthy energy levels. I've also been taking their Nootropic Focus, which supports brain health and concentration. They have some of the highest quality supplements, and they even have organically grown mold and mycotoxin-free coffee. Just click the link in the description to check them out. And finally, if you'd like to make a donation to help out the show, it'd be greatly appreciated. Anything helps us keep bringing you 5 nights a week, 5 shows, amazing guests. That link is in the description as well. Tonight, I want to welcome Sergio Halabi. He is a brand manager, business owner, and the Paradigm Shift podcast host, where he explores truth through forgotten knowledge. His main focus of research is on ancient astronauts, especially the Anunnaki, and their influence on early religions, especially Abrahamic. He has a background in theology, which gave him access to many Christian doctrines. He uses his knowledge of the Arab languages and the culture to relate to the religion, and is well versed in Islam. He is currently gathering enough information to rewrite the old Abrahamic religions and make them more literal and streamlined with our understanding of aliens and technology today. Sergio, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming on. I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic church, and I always remember feeling like there was so many aspects of the Bible that didn't make sense or felt out of place and just didn't fit with some of the narratives. And as I got older, I realized that the Bible was a collection of even older texts from even more ancient civilizations like Babylonian and Egyptian. And once you start looking into those, the Bible really takes on an entire new perspective. What got you looking into these ancient mysteries?
Well, basically, same as you, I have also a Catholic background. Based on my country and my school that I attended, and as well the home that I was in. And I was exposed to a lot of this information when it comes to the New Testament of the Bible, of Christianity itself, and to the Old Testament, which Christianity and Judaism share. And like you, I've always also felt there was something a bit, there's something that's just not clicking, and it's not about the faith itself or whether it's about God or something like that. There's something within the stories themselves especially of the Old Testament, that felt a little bit off to me. And on the other side, I was always very interested with anything paranormal and metaphysical, and I've experienced out-of-body OBEs, out-of-body experience, without knowing what they are. I have had a dream in which I experienced a near-death experience within the dream, and I was stabbed, but when I woke up, I had a problem with my muscle that today in my back, there's still an issue with it, something that, I kind of brought from my dream and stuff like that. So I've always had an inclination to feel that there is something more to the reality that we have been told, that we are not, that's something that's being kept from us, that's being hidden from us. And then combine that with the fact that I am Arab, so reading the Bible from an Arabic language is really different than reading it from an English one. There are words that don't exist in the English versions. There are ways of pronouncing certain letters that really put a lot of spin that I will explain to later on in the episodes. And basically, it kind of, the switch in my life turned when my son, who was around 5 at the time, suddenly asked me one day, I picked him up from school, and he brought up the question of God. And he was asking me, it was actually more about, life after death and what happens when we die. Is there heaven? And then it was at that moment when I felt that I can't just give him the answer that I was given while telling him that this is the ultimate truth, because no one really knows what the ultimate truth is, right? So it felt like I would be betraying his trust, just like how my trust was betrayed when I asked those questions and I was told, this is the absolute truth about how humanity was created, about what God is, about what the history is, about our civilization and everything. And there was no room in which someone said, but there could be another theory. There could be something else. No, it was, that's it. This is the ultimate truth. And then when you grow up and you start researching on your own, you realize, I don't think that's the ultimate truth, or at least it's not the only truth that's being studied or theorized. And that's where I came to, ancient Mesopotamia and Sumerian and the Anunnaki and the myth of creation and how everything started. And that just blew my mind. And it blew my mind because it felt, first of all, when I was reading the mythology of the Anunnaki and the creation and the flood and everything that is in connection between mankind and their gods, I felt like, wait, I have seen this before, right? Like I've read this before and I was told that this is what my religion is. Are you telling me that this is just stories that have been compiled from an older generation of mythology and just been changed a little bit with a few words removed and others put in just so that it can fit a certain narrative? And that's what launched me into this research, that it feels like a rabbit hole, but in fact, you feel like more like you can't stop because it's overwhelmingly amazing and it opens your mind to so many other things. And that's where my focus started becoming. Like I've seen how other people, there are people out there in the field doing archaeology and they're digging in the ground, and others are researching different books and different texts. And for me, what I want to fill the gap that's in the market of this, which is looking at the most, the biggest religions that are engulfing the planet today, which is the Abrahamic religions. You have Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and realizing the origin of those three religions and where did it come from. If we stop for a second and try to read them from a different light, a bit more literal, understanding them from how we understand technology today and what we understand about consciousness and about ourselves and about aliens and spacecrafts and abductions and all that stuff. And once you start doing that, once you start rereading the Bible in that light, it's mind-blowing. Like it's a completely different story that actually makes so much more sense than just this happened and that happened for no reason at all. So that was basically the basis of my entire journey to start the podcast and the research and everything I want to go on.
Now, when it comes to some of the stories in the Bible and the Anunnaki mythology, what are some of the most, compelling stories that you could compare to the Anunnaki mythology when it comes to the Bible?
Oh, I mean, from the get-go, you have the myth of creation. That's the first thing that you can, the first paper, page when you open, and you can see the similarities between how, when it comes to the Anunnaki, and I'm sure your listeners already are familiar a little bit with the Anunnaki and with Enki and Enlil and Anu and all this stuff, but I'll just, say them very quickly so that we kind of set the tone of what we're going to be talking about. And basically, the comparison comes that in the Abrahamic religions, you have a God who has created humanity in his likeness, very important, in his likeness, and then he put this creation to work in the Garden of Eden, told him do this and do that, and do not seek out more information, do not eat from that tree, and everything will be fine. This is, of course, the Bible itself. And then Adam did eat, he got information, he realized what was happening, and God was really angry, and he threw him out of the garden. And then there's the story of the flood with Noah, in which God said, I am no longer okay with my creation. They are sinful. They are too much. They are, reproducing at a very big rate, and I want to reset the whole thing. But I like you, Noah, and your family, and I want you to build this ark so that you can survive whatever I'm going to bring upon you. You have stories that are, for example, the destruction of the Tower of Babel, about how humanity was being united after they survived the flood and reproduced, and the seed grew and everything. And then same thing, in which a God basically in the Old Testament felt like, no, this is not okay, and again I'm going to interfere with how humanity is evolving to an extent. And so on and so on. Basically, the comparisons don't end. Now, when it comes for the Anunnaki side, you have this ancient astronauts and ancient aliens who came down to Earth and needed to do something on Earth, which is theorized to be basically mining gold, but there is no actual mention of that anywhere in specific. But they were doing something on Earth for an extremely long time, around 300,000 years. And at some point they grew tired, they can no longer do it, and then they rebelled against their own leaders in the hierarchy, that we need a solution for this because we can no longer do it. And that's when the idea of a man or something that is created from their own part of, from their own DNA or in their own likeness. So again, we can see now here, we can start seeing even the words being used the same, that the Anunnaki needed something that looks like them, that has parts of their own, genetics and stuff, that they can do the work for them. And as the mythology goes, that man was created, and again, man grew out of control when one of the gods, Enki, got involved. Basically, he had a sort of admiration to the creation that happened, and wanted to teach them more, wanted to bring their consciousness more alive and everything, and help them reproduce. That led to to humanity becoming so much and so loud that Enlil, the god of the heavens, of the skies, grew tired. He said, like, these are too loud, I cannot sleep anymore, I cannot do this, I need to restart, I need to create a flood to restart everything. And in the mythology, it was Enki who actually informed a man to tell him, build an ark and do this and do that. And this is something I'm going to tap into a bit later, which is about the duality that we see, the duality of God that we see in the Bible itself, and how there always seems to be a sort of a time where God says something and then he changes his mind, and then says something else and then tells these people, yeah, but you don't need to be part of it, or something like that. So we see it as God changing in his mind, whereas if we look at two different entities, we can tell that one of them is doing something, the other is doing something else completely. And that basically, like, if we want to set the tone from the start, that the God of the Jews, who is known as Yahweh, okay, and if he is the one who we're gonna call as Enlil, all right, and he's the one who has always been very detached from humanity, needs to be worshipped as a god, doesn't want to communicate and doesn't want humanity to prosper and gain knowledge and everything, then you start seeing how Enlil is the one who is creating the trouble for mankind, and how Enki is the one trying to save them over and over, whether bringing knowledge to them, whether telling them about the flood, or even there's the part where you have the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he also brought in told that this is going to happen, do not go to the cities because they will be destroyed, and so on and so on. So once you start noticing that let's say, for example, what we have now is the story of, from Enlil's point of view, like it's his story. Of course, anything that is opposing him is going to be labeled as bad and as the devil or Satan or whatever. And something that came, it struck me, is that in the entire book of the Old Testament, there is no mention of the devil. Like, it was never even mentioned. In the myth of creation, and when we talk about Adam and Eve, we only say the serpent. It was through theology and understanding of what it could mean that we have labeled that the serpent is the devil himself, even though it was never mentioned anywhere that this is something that is opposing to God or something. Just said the serpent came and did this. And you would think something as prominent as the devil, especially in Abrahamic religions, would at least be at the start of all the stories, right? Like, you would think, okay, so there's God and there's the creation and there's all the prophets and everything. What about what's on the other side? Who's opposing all of this? Where is the devil in this? And it's never mentioned. It's just mentioned that there are different entities and different gods that showed up and different things at some point, and what God's relationship to them was. And if I can segue into how we can, if we just read certain paragraphs from the Bible, but if we look at them right now, instead of thinking, okay, so this is God and this is Adam and Eve, and we don't really know where they are, we don't understand what the Garden of Eden is, we don't know what's going on. It's all symbolism, it's all symbolism. And if we take a moment and go, okay, so let's say it's not symbolism. Let's say we take it literally, given that whoever wrote these tablets in which the entire mythology is written on, whoever did that, is someone who saw something and just wrote it down as his understanding of it is. It's not like he knew what it could mean, or if he's looking at something which is an advanced technology, he would know, oh, this is a technology. He would just relay the words in his simple vocabulary. So this is what I would focus on completely. Like, for example, so in the book of Genesis, okay, there's the paragraph which I'll read, and it says, like, and the Lord said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. This is after Adam ate the fruit from the tree. And by the way, there were two trees, right? So there was this is also not really talked about in mainstream, depictions or stuff, because there was, we always think there's a fruit of the tree and that's it, but there were two trees. One is the tree of knowledge, of good and evil, and one is the tree of life. And the tree of life is what gives you immortality. And he would say, and the man has now become like one of us, not like me. He didn't say he became a god. He said like one of us, which indicates there is more than one entity at play right now, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take from the tree of life and eat and live forever. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden towards the ground from which he had been taken, which means aligning that with the mythology of the Anunnaki and our understanding now of what happened, which is this ancient alien race that came and took one of the Homo family, from the Homo sapiens that were already inhabiting on Earth. Okay, he took them, infused them with a part of his own DNA, with their own DNA from the Anunnaki, and then took them to work within that space of that garden or something. So now in the Old Testament, God is saying, now he's gonna go back to where I brought him from. And then continues saying, after he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the tree of life. A flaming sword. Now, if you want to think about it from a magical religious place, you'd be like, okay, so there was this sword made of fire. Whereas if you look at it from a technological place, so wait, is this like a laser door, for example? Is this something that something that is guarding a specific entrance? You know what I mean? So every time we mention in the Bible about fire and chariots and something, like I'll give you another example, which is this is about Elijah, and it's written in the book of Kings, and it says, as they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw that and cried out, my father, the chariot and horsemen of Israel, blah, blah. But again, so it says, suddenly a chariot of fire appeared, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Now, take that information and that scene from the Bible and compare it to an actual alien abduction in the way people refer to right now. So if someone in that time, we're talking thousands and thousands of years ago, who have no idea what to call a spaceship that just appeared above them, they will see how there's the fuel of the rocket, like the fire stuff, and how someone is going up to heaven, which is basically just up in a whirlwind, which is exactly what aligns with something someone would say right now about how many alien abductions we have heard. But they would not call it spaceship, they would call it a chariot that is made of fire, because they have no other words to use, right? Other places, like for example, when it came to the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, okay, the two cities, which is, this is in Genesis 19, and it says, by the time Lot, okay, the guy who basically he was favored by God, he reached the city, the sun had risen over the land, then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of heavens. Thus he overthrew the cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. Again, this we're saying God rained down fire from the sky and everything was destroyed by his will, and the vegetation died and everything died. And when people looked at it, they completely, evaporated and became like salt and just completely evaporated. And then when you take that and you put it under the light of, was this like an actual nuclear attack, or was this an attack that involved bombs and gunpowder and something like that? And when the fact that the vegetation died, it means it was radiated, and the fact that people turned into it was because of that impact of the hit and how it did to them, right? So this is where we start noticing that whatever was written in the Bible, for some reason, everyone who is under the Abrahamic religion has agreed unconsciously to just accept as things that happened, whether they are meant to be symbolic or literal, but without any actual reason as to how these things are happening. How can we take those, like suddenly fire appearing from the sky and someone is being pulled up, without actually understanding, wait, does this mean that there was more than, there was a different race at the time that was dealing with mankind? There was something else. And going on and on. So for example, there is in the book of Exodus, which is about Moses and the tablets and the Ten Commandments, which, God has basically revealed how to build a society, if you want, or how to build a civilization and what it needs to survive and everything. And again, it says, whenever the people of Israel set up camp, Moses would take up the sacred tent and put it up some distance outside the camp. It was called the tent of the Lord's presence, and anyone who wanted to consult the Lord would go out to it. Whenever Moses went out there, the people would stand at the door of the tent and watch Moses until he entered it, so on and so on. I want to get to the point which is important. Okay. Here, basically, he's talking, he says, my name is Yahweh. And this is what he says. He asks Moses to, after he freed the people from Egypt, which is, by the way, like if you want to go into ancient aliens theory, it's where Marduk, the son of Enki, kind of took place in Egypt around the time of Atlantis and everything, and he kind of needed all the people to be there. But again, it was Enlil, who still was going after the people, and he wanted them to kind of like always be under this oppression, under this lack of knowledge and everything. And he said, as he was telling him to go to Israel and go to the promised land, he told him, do not make any treaties with the people of the country in which you are going, because this would be a fatal trap to you. Instead, tear down their altars, destroy their sacred pillars, and cut down their symbol of the goddess Asherah. Only that, of the goddess Asherah. Asherah in Anunnaki, she is Ishtar, who is the wife of Anu, who is the father of Enlil. And at that point of the story between the Anunnaki, we know that there has been a great war that has happened among the Anunnaki, and the separation had happened between what they did with mankind and what they did with Earth, and there were wars raging all over the planet and outside of the planet. So to me, the fact that this goddess herself was mentioned by name, and how Yahweh himself in the Bible said, destroy that altar and destroy that goddess symbol, is very important. And there's a sentence that I found in the Arabic book of the Bible that was not in the English. In the Arabic, he actually continues to say, for I am Yahweh, a jealous God, and do not wish to share you with the other gods. At no point did he mention in the Bible, I'm saying in the Bible, at no point did he come and say, there are no other gods, that I am the only one and everything else is fake or not real. He said, I do not want to be shared with those gods. I do not want my people to worship them. I want them to worship me, for I am jealous, for I am the one. I am all this. And this to me seems so Enlil out of him. You know what I mean? Like it's such a petty thing to say from this side.
Now, I'm wondering, when it comes to the New Testament, what happened to this vengeful God? What happened to Enlil or Yahweh? And how does Jesus come into all this? Was Jesus a real man? And, how does this transition into the New Testament occur? What God are we looking at during this period?
I mean, you can clearly see the fact how Jesus was treated by the simple message that he was saying that, you know what, let's just all love ourselves and love each other and be nice, don't kill, there was nothing radical about what he was saying. And he was deemed by the religion of that time that he is a dangerous man, that he is pushing people away from their God, from Yahweh. He needs to be put to death. He needs to be all this. So yes, I 100% believe that Jesus is a real person. I 100% believe that he was infused with with knowledge that what some would call, on the Pleiadian side, for example, or some sort of like this extraterrestrial, but not maybe in the same vein as what the Anunnaki are. So there's something that I noticed when people mention the different type of aliens and different type, and this will answer what I think about Jesus and all. And we tend to think that everything is very physical when it comes to aliens. So for example, if I see like the grays, okay, right, the gray aliens, the kidnapper, the abductors, the ones who do the experiments and everything, it's a very physical aspect to them, where literally I am seeing my body or I'm seeing this. Anunnaki themselves, for example, are also very physical, when the fact that they landed on Earth and they mined the Earth and they created mankind from it and all that. But there are other types of aliens that are more energetic and influential on the side. So when you talk about, for example, draconians, or as the other one knows as reptilians and stuff, and when you talk about Pleiadians, and when you mentioned how angel-like they are and how they want to help humanity and all that, there's a huge difference between those type of aliens, right? And those types of entities themselves, because some work within the three-dimensional world that Earth is part of, and some work within the five-dimensional world that we are all on multi-dimension, multi-layered beings. So when it comes to the masters, to the ascended ones like Jesus, for example, like I would definitely believe that there is an infusion of this energy, of this Palladian energy, that to bring awakeness to mankind, to bring to kind of like, you know, shift it to a higher dimension, as everyone says, and all that. And there's always this kind of joke about the older ones who first started mentioning this stuff, like how much they suffered versus what's happening right now. Because now if I come on my podcast and talk about, you know, how to achieve 5-dimensional energy and how to do this and consciousness and stuff, I'm not going to be put to the cross, right? I'm not going to be rejected the way those ancient masters were rejected. So it's like, and on top of that as well, that the fact that the Pleiadians don't deal with time as we do. So everything is happening in a very different way than we perceive it. So it's not like to a Pleiadian, when you want to talk Pleiadian energy, we're not talking about, oh, it happened a couple of thousand years ago, and then they waited a couple of thousand years, and then they mentioned it again, so that now there's a shift to Earth and mankind. No, I mean, it's all happening at the same time to them, because there is no time, you know, right? So they see things in a very different way. So notice how when with the New Testament and the rise of Jesus himself, all the message was about awakening, about the power of mankind, about what you can achieve. And this is honestly, it's a good thing that you mentioned how you went to Jesus, because this also actually talks about the type of the religion that has kind of emerged when it comes to the Arab world and the Middle East in specific, because the Middle East is the birthplace of Abrahamic religions, and then it spread around the world, right? And there is this weird thing when it comes to religions. What I noticed, if you want to look at it globally, that there are 2 types of religion, regardless of whether we're talking about one God or 100 gods. It's not about that. It's about the power that it gives you. A religion, what it tells you you can do as a person. Anything related to Abrahamic religion, which is Enlil, which is oppression to mankind and disrespect, tells you that you are not good at anything by yourself. You are sinful. You are born with the original sin. You are incapable of making choices about what benefits mankind, what is good to the society. Unless a religion comes and tells you what to do, what is right from wrong, you as a creation lack everything. You are not powerful at all. You are nothing without a God, right? And then if you step away from that and you look at religions that have kind of like grew outside of the Abrahamic and the Enlil and the Anunnaki domination, you can see how much there is empowerment to mankind. Like, the universe is within you. You can achieve anything. The laws of the universe are, all you have to do is imagine something, the law of attraction, the law of this. You can do all, like, you know, the imprint of the creator, the source, is literally embedded in you. And all you have to do is remember who you are and how powerful you are and what you can do, which is basically the Enki message, you know, about how much you can achieve, versus the Enlil message, which is you're nothing, you're weak, you're gonna do that. So when Jesus came and gave that, he actually said that you are powerful beyond measure. If you want, you can move mountains. All you have to do is believe. He said, I'm not doing, when they saw him walk on water, they were like, my Lord, how could you? And he said, I'm not doing anything you cannot do. All you have to do is believe that you can, that you have the power. That's it cannot be more Pleiadian message than that, basically.
Right. Now, what do you think happened with this Enlil character in the New Testament? You know, Enlil Yahweh, why isn't he prevalent in the New Testament, this vengeful God?
Yeah, because you have to also look at it from an evolutionary place in terms of how men started understanding things. Now, look at it from, let's say you have a sort of cattle, okay, like sheep. And when you first breed something new, you need to be very, like strict and train them in a specific way. You do this, you do that, you walk here, you eat that, that grass over there, and you kind of guide them from the start, and you have to be hardworking on them a lot. And then you kind of, once they've been trained enough, you kind of like, you can just relax a little bit, and they've already been set on the path of complete submission, that this is who I am, and this is so his influence was no longer needed, because man is now more capable of oppressing themselves. You know what I mean? So once you have few key people put in place of, you are in charge of this, you are in charge of, and then you train them in that direction, that's it. They can just take it from there, and he can just sit back and watch it happen, or achieve his own gain, or just kind of like, just let it pass. And this is what I feel happened, because the prominence of Yahweh was still there, but at the same time, the power was still within that Judaic religion, that there is still oppression, there's still this, and we can still see that effect till today in all the Abrahamic religions. Like even Christianity itself, Christianity today has nothing to do with what Jesus was saying completely, especially like forgetting what the Dark Ages were talking about and all that stuff, how bad that thing was. Even today, Jesus at no point said, make a religion in my name, for example. He never said, worship me as a God. He never said it. All he was talking about, you can do it. You have all the power. I'm just here to show you the way of how to do it. He never said, build cathedrals in my name and oppress the people in my name and, reject whoever doesn't believe in me. Or nothing of that.
Right.
So it's kind of like, even with Jesus' presence and how he was pushed to the side, they still needed to kind of create those religions. Like, yeah, we are saying what he's saying, but not really. We're actually going back to the origins of Enlil and the Yahweh and all that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, when it comes to, say, Zechariah Sitchin's interpretation of the Anunnaki, you mentioned earlier that there was really no mention of them coming here to mine gold. Do you think that is actually one of the reasons that these beings came, is for gold, or was it for other reasons? It seems like there would have been some different reasons.
I agree. I mean, I don't think you need 300,000 years to mine gold on Earth only, right? But I think that this was mentioned in several different places when people when the people ask aliens, for example, or they meditate, or they visit the Akashic records, or they do so many different things. That Earth itself is a very special place. Earth on its own, like it stands out in the universe because it's a very lush planet. It's extremely resource, full, and it kind of is a gateway as well to different dimensions. Okay, and the fact that we as species are on Earth, but are capable of understanding that there are different dimensions, and there's the 5D, and there's all that, makes Earth itself a very energy-centric location that, in fact, attracted a lot of different civilizations over its course. This Anunnaki were not the first, and they're not the only one, they're not the last at all. So the Anunnaki are just one of the many who have been part of Earth, whether they were looking for gold, whether they were looking for other resources as well. The only thing that made the Anunnaki stand out is the fact that they interfered with the course of mankind, basically, of one of the species, because they're the only ones who actually came and they were like, let's do something and change the course of an entire species and have them work for us and everything. So this is why they kind of stand out among the others, and that caused an issue in the galactic federation, if you want to call it, or something, because that was against the rules, if you want, or something like that. Like, there's not too much information about it, but it does seem like this is the direction everyone feels when they research.
Now, you feel that these beings were more physical beings as opposed to type of interdimensional, energetic beings.
Yeah.
Do you think that they were giants, like the
No.
Nephilim spoken of? No? Okay. So they were just human, just regular humanoid looking individuals?
No, they were definitely taller than humans. definitely taller than humans, but not the giants or the Nephilim that are mentioned in also the Bible or in different mythology. Those were a different race that is on Earth, and they had a lot of issues with the Anunnaki as well. You can spot that there were several moments when it comes to a lot of built civil monuments in which where some people believe that giants were involved in those constructions, that they were actually trying to defend mankind, and they were trying to build sanctuaries for them, or help them like escape this kind of stuff. And that's also, by the way, also mentioned in the Bible, which not a lot of people notice. When you talk about the story of David and Goliath, okay, now David in the Bible is a Jew, which means that he follows the Abrahamic religions, which means that he is under Enlil's reign, right? So to him, he is the good guy. And then it says that Goliath was someone who was living in Philistine, which is Palestine today, and they had an encounter in which David did something with a rock, and he kind of hit him and killed him and everything. And Goliath himself is mentioned as how big he was in the Bible, and I've read it somewhere. He was around 3.5 meters tall. That's not a human length. This is an Nephilim. This is a giant that was there, and again, it's mentioned in the Bible, and again, it's overlooked as to who these people were. Even in Islam, by the way, there's a huge talk about giants and how they roamed the earth at the time. And we see till now there are I don't know if you've seen those footprints all over. There's a lot of giant footprints that you can see, and they're like made into rock, into stone that cannot be faked or anything. So there's still this kind of hiding that we are not the only species on Earth, or at least not the only one who's ever been or ever was, And I just would like to mention this part because I've spoken about, Judaism and Christianity, but I haven't dug so much deep yet into it. This is a new branch for me, but I did find a paragraph in the Quran of Islam that, again, if it's read as if it's Enlil talking, because we're still talking about the same thing, whether it's Yahweh or whether it's Allah or whether this is the same entity, presence talking. And this is in a, because in the Quran, there are, just like how in the Bible, there are like books, different books. So in the Quran, there's something called the surah, which is directly translated to image, but in fact, it's like a book. It's like an entire section. And within those sections, there are verses. And this one is called basically the section of the incident, okay? Which is like, okay, so what happened? And it's like, I'm gonna read the paragraph, but this was God talking to a man, and he was angry at the time. God was angry at the time, and he was angry at man because they have kind of forgotten who God is, okay? And like as if they're not giving him the credit that he seeks. And this is what he says. Now, hear it from an Enlil background and from an Anunnaki. So he's saying, it is we who have created you. Why will you not witness the truth? Do you then see the human seed that you throw out? Is it you who created, or are we the creators? We have decreed death to be your common lot, and we are not to be frustrated from changing your forms and creating you again in the forms that you know not. And you certainly know already the first form of creation, then why do you not celebrate his praises, as if talking about one who has, created? See you the seed that you sow in the ground? Is it you that cause it to grow, or are we the cause? Were it our will, we would crumble it to dry powder, and you would be left in wonderment, saying, we are indeed left with debts for nothing. And then continuously, see the water which you drink, do you bring it down from the cloud, or do we? Were it our will, we could make it salt. Then why do you not give thanks? And then it goes on with the same, I don't know what the word is, but it's kind of like you should just be grateful that I created you. You know, like you are not being grateful for what I did. And you know that I brought you from somewhere else. You know, I gave you everything you need. You know all this. So again, it's this very judgmental, insecure, jealous entity that is dealing with the entirety of the Abrahamic religion, asking for obedience, asking for submission, which is not what anything else. It just doesn't make sense that this is the creator of the entire existence that we live in, right?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Now, when it comes to what you were talking about earlier with the duality of God and reading the Bible more literally in accordance with our knowledge today, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, for example, in the Bible, there's always this mention how God decides to do something which is sort of like destructive in nature. And then you see how he changes his mind. He does something and then he kind of goes and says, but you know what? You are spared. And then how about if I don't do this? How about if I don't do that? So, for example, this showed up when we were talking about his relationship with Adam and Eve in general, actually. Like the fact that he gave life and how he told them that you can do whatever you want and you can do this, and then told them, do not, disobey me and everything. And then, okay, you know what? You've disappointed me and I'm angry, but I'll give you whatever you need. So I'll give you the clothes to put on your back, and I'll teach you how to do certain things so that you can survive when I threw you back on earth and stuff like that. And then you see it, for example, when it comes to Noah and how he wanted to do nothing with mankind. He just like completely wanted to reset the entirety of creation. Then he came to Noah in a dream and said, also I don't want you to die, so why don't I teach you how to build an ark to survive the flood? Did it again when it comes to Abraham himself and how he told him, I want you to take your son to the mountain and sacrifice him in my name. And when he almost was going to do that, he came back and was like, you know what, just don't do it anymore. We're good. Did it again when it came to the, like I said, to the destruction of and his relationship with Lot and destruction of God of Sodom and Gomorrah, saying, I'm going to destroy those cities, I'm going to do this. But and in the Bible, it goes into details about how Lot came to the angels and told them, please spare these cities and spare. And then the angel said, you know what? God has heard you and decided, yes, he will spare certain people. So everyone who is safe, do this and do that. And again, and even when he wanted to save people from Egypt, when he wanted to do this, there's this insane duality that we see that also does not align with an all, omnipresent, out of time creator who wouldn't really, and such a human characteristic, right? It's such a physical, limited, three-dimensional way of thinking that, he changed his mind, he did this. So this is where I feel that the Bible has been skewed so that it says it's the same Lord, it's the same God who's changing his mind, when in fact we can clearly see that there's more than one at work here, and one that actually cares about mankind and one that does not.
Now, do you think that some of these major cataclysms, that we would consider like the Great Flood, were intentionally caused possibly by these gods, like Enlil?
Yeah, definitely. This is mentioned in every sort of mythology, not just in the Sumerian ones. Everything that ever talks about ancient destructions, the flood is something that get passed on from one story to another, from one religion to another. It's like almost the same constant, right? About that something happened on Earth that caused major destruction. It was a flood, and it was a reset point in everything. And yes, these beings are capable of much more than we can ever dream of. We're talking about able to shape Earth in a specific way, or manipulate natural things and disasters and everything. And it is very common and very acceptable to think that it was intentional, it was on purpose, and definitely on to get destruction, to destroy. Yeah.
Yeah,
and There's something that I wanted to mention about his name, because I mentioned the my advantage when it comes to Arabic and how I can read certain words differently and what they would mean. And again, another proof that the Bible itself feels that it's being under the agenda of Enlil. And notice that I'm like, the English pronunciation of Enki and Enlil, right? Like anytime you would hear it, it would be Enlil. However, it's in fact, there's an emphasis on the il, which becomes Enlil. And why is that? Because we know that Enki and Enlil are not their official names, they are their ranks. So Enki is god of earth. The word ki in Sumerian is earth or ground, and En is the lord of. And Il is sky, and Enlil is lord of the sky. So because Enki is even referred to as Ea and other names in Babylonian, Akkadian, and Sumerian. So he had different names, but his rank was an Enki, and the rank of Enlil is Enlil, lord of the sky. Now, Il itself, if you take that part and then you add, you notice that is actually mentioned a lot in the Old Testament, in the Arabic version of it, because Arabic is a direct evolution of the language from the Sumerian to the Akkadian to the Aramic, Hebrew, Arabic. Like it's all kind of, they evolved into each other, into what we have now, Arabic. And Il is still mentioned in a lot of the names of the angels. So the angels that were sent by God, basically. So when you say, for example, the name Gabriel, in Arabic, his name is Jibril with an Il at the end. And if you mention the name Michelangelo, it's actually Michael. If you mention the name of what is known as Satan or Israel, is actually Azrael. Again, Il. And to take it even further, the name of Israel as the promised land, in Arabic, it's divided into two. It's called Israel. And Israel, Il being referred to Enlil, and Isra in the name, it means victory of. So the land itself is called the victory of Il, which is the victory of Enlil, right? So this is how you can also add to the list of the evidence that the God of the Ancient Testament and of Yahweh and Allah is still Enlil, because the messengers that came in his name are holding his name as part of their own last name, right? So with the Il, as like, I am Jibril, I am Michael, I am Israel, like that.
Wow, that is super interesting. Victory of Enlil, that's Israel. Yeah, I'm gonna have to definitely tell my my roommate and producer Cory about that, because he's doing a deep dive into some ancient Israel type of rituals, going back to the Talmud and stuff like that. It's very fascinating. Nice. It all connects. It all connects very well. Now, do you think that it's possible that these beings would still be around today, pulling strings, kind of engineering society in any way?
Honestly, I don't really think so, because what we are living now is very different than what they were living before. At the time, there was no emphasis on hiding the truth. After all, these things were written in tablets. They were not destroyed. The records were kept. Okay, so at no point is there any proof that the Anunnaki want to hide their presence from mankind, that we are operating in the shadows. In fact, it's weird enough, the Anunnaki are the only, in any ancient mythology from before, they are referred to as much more present on Earth than they are in another realm. So when you talk about, for example, the Greek mythology, so they're living in the gods are living in Mount Olympus, they're distant from us, they do that. When you talk about Romans as well, Norse, any sort of mythology that refers to gods, there's always this kind of, they live somewhere else, whether it was another dimension, whether there's just, whereas the Anunnaki, they were like walking the earth. Okay, they are very clearly more it feels more history than it feels mythology. It feels like you're reading a history book, not a mythology. And this is why I do not feel at no point like the Anunnaki want to hide their presence. This is what we did. We wrote it down. We spoke about it. We've mentioned it. It's just, we're okay with it. Like, there is no shame in what's happening. I think what's happening now is that with this draconian mind control, hiding the truth that we're living in now, that's a completely different entity, completely different goals and what they want to achieve. And part of it is to keep mankind from knowing their past. Like, it's like, I've read it so many times where, as they say that, mankind is like a species with amnesia, right? Because we don't really remember our beginnings. We don't really know what's happening. And this is serving different entities right now. It doesn't serve anything, the Anunnaki, if we don't know about them. They're not going to benefit from it, because at no point did they try to hide it. So again, I don't think that their presence today is as prominent as it was before. I don't know what sort of presence they have now, but there's definitely different type of presence today. There is a more draconian presence. There's more a Pleiadian message, the grays and everything. And yes, this is more are interfering basically with mankind.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So that being said, do you think that some of the more draconian aspects of what we're seeing pushed on society right now may be being directed from some sort of off-planet intelligence? And in conjunction with that, do you think that this whole disclosure movement through the mainstream is a disinformation campaign?
Oh, about like how the Pentagon is going to reveal something huge in June?
Right.
Yeah, this is all, I don't believe a single word. I expect them to just say this is a very advanced plane that we have created, and that, it helped us win some war or something, and then just ended. There's what they're trying to do now is discredit people who are bringing more information when it comes to alien and ancient civilizations and stuff. So the way to do that is not to say these people are crazy, is to say, how you were thinking that there's some alien entity or something? Well, it's not really there. I mean, yes, we've hidden some truth from you, but the truth is just everything we've done. There's nothing else out there. Don't worry about it, because they can no longer stay quiet on it. I mean, almost so many people are talking. Like, this is really the awakening, and it keeps like, even you can see it around you with personal people. Like, this person is now talking about this topic. Like, what? That's insane. Like, 20 years ago, no one was talking about this, right? So there's this kind of contagious awakening that's happening, and that's the point. That is the shift. That's the way, what was talked about, that the great awakening of mankind. This is how it was going to be anyway. So in order to combat this, what we do is not say, oh, these people are crazy and don't listen to them, because that doesn't work anymore. What we do is try to minimize that. Yes, we have been lying to you, but it's not what you think. It's not because they are aliens. It's because, we have technology that we didn't want to share before. So people who were on the fence be like, okay, so, it's not aliens. And yes, I agree that the government is lying. So every conspiracy theory is, you're right. They were lying, but not for the reason you're saying they were lying, like that.
Right. Yeah.
That
makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Now, in closing, do you think that this disclosure is going to continue in the direction that it is going, or do you think that it's possible that we may even see some kind of faked alien invasion? We've heard lots of theories about this coming up, or something kind of being faked on our end, on our military intelligence end.
Well, I mean, so I read in 1984. Have you read the book?
Yes.
Okay. And one thing stood out to me is that how they were talking in the book about the ongoing war, and how they realized that if there's a war like World War I or World War II, where there's a beginning and an end, people will start requesting change in the system after something ends. And the fact that today there is no end to any war that is ever being raised, there's just a continuation, but it just takes different form or something like that. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I don't believe in the way humanity is operating today, I don't believe anyone will try to create an event, an actual thing happening. The mind control operates in a way where it just needs to keep everything super mundane. Everything is just so boring. It's so mundane. It's the same routine that you're living every day, every day, every day. If they fake something, or if they reveal a big truth about, aliens, or if they show us a galactic war, or they reveal we've been part of this all our lives, then the natural response for mankind is to rebel against the government, against any government. They were like, you've been lying to us. We want change. We want to see different people in charge. And governments will never allow for something like this to happen. There should not be, in any sort of mind control, in any sort of control over thinking and over public, there should never be any room for hope that things are going to change. We need to always maintain that things are good the way they are, and they're very boring, and nothing special ever happens ever. So you need to always trust us with your lives and with your brains and everything. So no, I don't believe that something unbelievable is gonna happen, and they're gonna reveal like this, or they're gonna tell us aliens, or they're gonna fake it, or anything they do outside of saying this is as boring as you can ever imagine, this is simply a plane that we have created, will make people go, okay, now that you've revealed that to me, this huge truth, I want change. I want different people in charge, and they definitely don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I think that could make a lot of sense. They definitely don't want to lose their grip on the power and control they have, especially, with the free energy and pharmaceuticals and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that if we found out a lot of stuff, that we would demand some big changes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sergio, thank you so much for coming on tonight. That was awesome information. I think we just kind of barely scratched the surface on some of this stuff. So I'd love to have you back on so we can dive a little bit deeper into this soon.
Thank you so much for having me. I definitely agree. There's so much more to talk about. Like, these topics just never end. And thank you so much. Even this is more of a personal thing for actually you having this show and allowing people like me and others to come on and discuss this stuff, because I feel like this is what's needed. Like, this is the best we can do. This is how we can win this war of information and of knowledge. And so thank you as well.
Yeah, 100%. That is definitely a war on information right now, and that was fantastic information. And like I said, we'll have you back on in the future. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening.